Hello from my car. It's so sunny out right now, which is such a nice change. Haven't seen the sun in a very long time. I'm heading to Homesense. I just went to a Christmas market. It was really cute. I'm heading over to Homesense because I wanted to look at their art prints, just to get some inspiration, both for the paintings I've been doing and also for some of the classes I'm teaching on like graphic design. I've been doing a lot of like wall art design classes lately. And the reason I wanted to look at them in Homesense, which is basically like Home Goods, if you're in the US, is because they have stuff that sells, like it's like fast fashion for furniture, right? So it's basically stuff that sells really fast, which means that it's kind of on trend. So I'm just basically going to get inspiration based on any trends because I too would like to sell things in a rapid fashion. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. And I'm gonna go home and do some painting later, which I'm very excited about. And I will probably film that painting too. So that's the plan. I always like checking out the art supplies at Homesense because they have the weirdest stuff, but I've gotten some good paint here before, like gold paint. Anyways, I digress. I was looking at frames. I was looking for frames that I'm going to use at the end of this video specifically because I'm going to be framing some watercolor paper paintings on decal edge paper. So having a look, I really liked this Edavi branded acrylic slab, but it doesn't have enough space in between to fit a thicker paper, so that wasn't a good option, even though I thought it was cute. Really liked this little long one, but I don't know if I could fit two side by side in here or if it would be slightly too tall, so I passed on this. And then I did actually pick up one of the ones I showed earlier that was on sale. But we'll deal with that at the end of the video. This was just looking for some inspiration for class projects or just paintings. In general, I'm seeing like a handful, like 25% of these paintings have really bright colors and the rest of them are just super neutrally neutrals. So I guess that's just kind of eternally the vibe. There's a small percentage for the people who like fun stuff. Also a lot of like alcohol and drink themed posters, which or they're not posters, they're art prints. And then some that are like inspired by or using historical artists or older artists that are public domain. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I have that Matisse painting in a picture, so funny because I taught a class how to design that. And then there's like their abstracts. There was one piece, this one here, that I did like that I'm kind of inspired by. I might try and design something in Canva for a little class about that, but we'll see. I think there was lots of good things here. I did take some notes and then had a coffee down at the seaport before heading back to work. So yeah, that's just my little aside before we head into some art stuff. Hello, I am back from my day out. Got a couple of things. I also went to the art store. So yeah, my plan for this video is that I'm going to do some painting. I'm going to do a little landscape and then I'm going to show you some frame options. Or we're just going to talk about framing because I try and frame a lot of my work. I feel like it's really daunting. Anyways, we'll get to that. I bought a couple of things at the art store. I just wanted to show you I'm filming on my camera because my good camera, no, I'm filming on my phone because my good camera is in the rig for overhead filming, which we'll do in a sec. I got 2 tubes of watercolor paint. I like getting the tubes and just filling up my little travel thing with it. I got Prussian blue because I think it might be nicer for skies. We're gonna give it a go. And I got this one called Neutral Tint, which is this kind of like gray color. I don't know, but I do like filling my clouds with stuff. So I don't know what to expect with this at all. It was a new color in this range. And I really like these Van Gogh watercolor paints. I really like how they look. So what I did buy at the store was I wanted big paper because I work tiny all the time. So I'm just gonna leave you there. I got this brick of watercolor paper. What size is it? It's like 12 by 16 inches. And it's a cotton-based paper, which is what I'm enjoying painting on. There's 10 sheets in here. So I may not touch this yet today, but soon. Maybe I'll do another video doing a big painting. I got 1 sheet of Arches watercolor paper. This was, I think, $8 for this 1 sheet. But again, it's a cotton rag, decal edge. I don't know the measurement of it, but it's an Arches watercolor paper. I'm gonna do 1 big painting with that. And then I got this drawing pad. This is it compared to me. It's very large. but it's just like, this was like $7 just for this big drawing pad. My plan is that I'm going to plan some paintings through sketches. And that's why I got a really big one. I also have like a drawing tablet, like a board to attach this to. So that's my plan. So, but for today's videos, I'm just gonna do small. I'm gonna go grab my watercolor stuff and put it on this table and start. I'll put my overhead camera on and we'll chit chat, and I think we'll do a landscape together. I wanna do a tiny one. So that's the plan. I put all my watercolor supplies in this little tub. It's not very tall, maybe like 2.5 inches, but it's nice that I can like move it around my house. And this is the kind of style of painting we're gonna do. This like little, I don't know, little landscape. I think it's cute. This is Twillingate Island, rather, in Newfoundland. So that's our point of reference. I'm just gonna set up my gear. All right, here's my little setup. This is all my supplies when I do most of my watercolors. Paper towel and cup of water. Here's my palette. This is a travel palette, but it's just what I use all the time. It's pretty messy, but that's okay. Got my 2 nude paints. These are the little papers I'm using. I've talked about them in other videos, but it's from Cotty Papers. They are handmade cotton rag, and I think they're just so cute. I love painting on this size. I think it's 160 GSM, 2 by 3 inches, maybe a little bit bigger than that. These are the 2 brushes I like to use. They're both pretty well worn. This one's from Curry's. This one's a Dynasty brush. They're just straightforward, but I mostly use this one. And then we have our 2 new little paints. So just to get started, I got some cheaper watercolor paper here. I just want to do some swatches just to, I don't know, I just think it'd be good. I want to find out what this neutral tint is all about. So let's just crack on with that. I'm just going to put some of this in the lid. I need to get a bigger travel palette, or not a travel palette, I need to get a bigger palette, period. Okay, this is kind of like oily and black on top. So, okay, let's talk about this. Neutral tint probably means light gray. It could also be some secret like mixing agent I don't know about that I just bought without knowing what it's actually for. But, I don't know. So, I kind of like it though. It's like a purple tinted. This might be really good for skies and stuff. Neutral tint. It's definitely warm, not neutral, if you were to ask me. But that's kind of pretty. I can definitely see how this is going to work. Like this painting is my palette basically. So I see like this is my gray and it's, do I know what color gray specifically? Yeah, it's a Payne's gray. So neutral tint is not Payne's gray. Let me put some Payne's beside it. Yeah, I see there's a big difference. So whereas the Payne's gray is like a blue black, this is like a warm purpley black, or gray, not black. I think that's pretty interesting. I like it a lot. I'm seeing storm clouds. I'm seeing these 2 working nicely together. Maybe I can smush them together a little bit. Talk to each other. Do something. This paper is so funny. This is actually watercolor paper from the dollar store, and I really like it. It's not like high quality paper or anything, but it's got this, I don't even know if it's real like hot press or cold press, but it has a texture embossed into it either way that sort of looks like giraffe stripes or spots that I really like. I don't know. I don't use it for like fine art stuff, but I use it for crafts all the time. And it's nice to do mixing on. Okay. I think those grays look great. I think this looks like a storm. So maybe I'll have to do some stormy type paintings. So this is the Prussian blue. And I said earlier, I couldn't remember what kind of blue I've been using. This is the one I like better. Ultramarine. I was pretty sure that was it. So yes, this guy in water is ultramarine blue. The other blue I have, I don't remember what it's called, but it's the lighter one. But more importantly, ultramarine has been fine. You can see like I like the water in this one. The sky is a very light wash of that color, but I think that the Prussian might be nicer for water. Well, definitely for sky, not as much for water. I feel like this is much more of a tropical water than what I typically paint. So where the scenes that I usually paint are mostly around like Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, near where I live. And sometimes I do like UK scenes from photos I've taken. But so those are kind of like northern oceans. And they have more like a denim blue color, like like a blackish blue. Whereas this I feel like is such a cheerful blue. So this could be a nice sky color for sure. Because I like it better than this is my uh-oh. Is that the same color? No, I don't think that's the same color. Oh God, I'm gonna get this everywhere. Okay, no, it's not the same. This is cerulean blue, which is different. Here they are side by side. But let me tell you, that's not that much different. But I think that is overall, I can get a darker color than with the cerulean blue. Because that's right here pretty much as dark as cerulean blue gets. In this little spot, oops, that was not my paper towel. Whereas this one, I can get that much darker. So, okay, so that is good. Good to know. All right, so let's start on a little painting together. So I'm kind of new to doing like art tutorials. I'll put this here just as I talk. Like I've done lots of graphic design teaching, but I haven't done so much like art teaching. So I'm trying to build my skills and let's like use this as an example together. When I'm looking at a painting, I'm basically looking at the major shapes, or sorry, when I'm looking at a photograph to paint, because I didn't do this in situ, I'm looking at the basic shapes and also trying to figure out where things connect to each other. So for example, this horizon line hit up here on the top of the cliffs. It didn't go above, it wasn't below. So that helped me kind of build out like a framework of where everything belongs, because I don't paint with any sketches. This is just going right into the paint on the paper. I am starting with the brown colors is where I usually begin. Browns and then grays and then greens. And that's because I actually saw that as just a tip. Instinctively, I want to paint the greens first. And the green that I use for this and all of them is an olive green. That's the only green I really use. I will also use a little bit of this yellow ochre and a couple just assorted browns. So for this picture, there was, this is not my photo, so I can't actually reference it. I can't put it in my video, but it was the rocks in the distance. There's a little beach, and then there was like the rocks up here, and then like foliage, and there's a road right here. So that was sort of the whole view. I'm gonna find a photo from my own collection so I can put it in the screen and kind of talk it through with you guys. Okay, I picked a picture that is going to be my reference for this little painting. And I'll put it on the screen. If you are following along for any reason, you're welcome to use it. This is a photo that I took in a place called Kingsport, Nova Scotia. It's on the Bay of Fundy, which has really big tides. So the sand you can see in this picture, I'll put it on the screen so you can see it better. It comes and goes pretty quickly throughout the day. So it's really pretty. So the way that this photo is structured, we have foliage and leaves and things in the foreground. We have some sand and beach in the distance. Then there's like water and sand kind of intermixed in sort of an interesting way. Then there's just water in the background, a little strip of land right along the horizon in the distance. And then for the sky, there's some low-lying darker clouds and then sort of a upper gray area. So this is a fun piece, a photo piece to work on, I think, because it's got a lot of elements. In terms of the order of painting this, I'm kind of just debating it in my head whether to ignore the green and do everything and then add the green after, or I think I'm just going to add like just carve out a little bit of space for the green and then work on the background, then do the final green on top. I think that's the best way to do it. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do, like I said, is I'm going to carve out the green. So I'm just going to add some water to my palette. This is my olive green paint that I'm using, which it was a liquid. I just dumped it in the empty hole in my palette. So that's why it looks so weird and gross. I'm going to try and add some more water. I don't want it to be too dark for the first little bit, for this first layer. And then I'm just going to roughly just kind of find the shape with like all these little, I'm doing like all these little touches with the brush. Not any specific shape, just keep adding some water to keep it nice and diluted. You can tape this down if you want to, by the way. I just find that I like to move things around when I paint. Because this tree area is kind of up all the way to the top, I'm not going to worry about it too much because there's just going to be sky up there. There won't be too much detail to cover over. So I'm just going to kind of fill in near the bottom, give myself a reference point. And with most of my watercolor style, I think it is kind of working in layers and then working like patches of color and then adding more detail on top, because I think that looks pretty good as a starting point. Also, this is why I love the cotton rag paper. I just feel like it soaks up the water in a way that I can still work with it, but it's not like rolling off the page. I really like that. All right, so next we are going to do some sand. I think I'm going to use this color, which is, I really should know all the colors of my palette, burnt sienna. There we go. I like burnt sienna because it is kind of a sandy color to me. Like, I don't know. All different places in the world have different color sand, so I can't say that this is a universal sand. But around here, it's pretty good, pretty accurate. So I'm just going to, again, kind of loosely go in and block out the section. Just gonna hold that down. That is sand. And I'm keeping my brush pretty wet for this layer. And it's okay if it's a little patchy. Like, I don't try to cover 100% of the paper when I'm painting. Like, I'm okay if there's little gaps because I just think it is my style. Like what I mean, like these little dots in between the green on the trees. And when things look too harsh, you can just add more water, soften it out. And I'm just going to look for kind of the tones in the picture. So the sand that's further or closer towards the camera is drier, and as it gets further out, it's more moist or damp, if you don't like the word moist. So I'm just going to add a little bit more color there, and I can also bring in another brown. I have this one here, just a little bit of a darker brown. And I'm not worrying too much about the green stuff I've marked out. Like, there's been some bleed and that's totally fine. But I'm also not like intentionally painting over it or anything. So now that I've kind of got out towards the edge where the water starts, I'm just going to pull some color down here. Then I'm going to start leaving some spaces between the sand so that I can fill that in with watercolors. Haha, painting with watercolors. And I'm using the darker brown. And try not to keep my brush too wet at this point because I don't want the brown to puddle up. I want to be able to leave those little gaps for the water. Now in the photo, there's sort of a darker sandbar like right out on this side. So I'll kind of add that in. But at this point, the objects are so faint and we're working at such a small scale that we're basically just looking at lines. So we've got that added in. And then in the distance, we have the horizon line, which is basically a really dark blue color. So I think just to try something different, I'm going to use that neutral tint color. I'm going to pull in my scrap just to mix it here so I don't mess up my painting. But I kind of like this color, and I think if I do that, maybe I'll do a little blue over it as my horizon line. There, I think that looks pretty good. I wonder if you can see it. It's quite faint. And also, if you can hear Blueberry, she's renovating her house here in my studio. So I'm just adding the tiniest bit of paint from my brush to that damp line that I just painted in. And it is a little bit bigger on this side. Get a little more water. Just gonna drag it out because it's some very low-lying mountains in the distance, actually, is what it is. So I'll just drag that line across. And I like how it looks. I like the sort of tones of this whole piece. I think it's kind of warm and cozy, but I do need to add blue in, which always messes up the coziness, in my opinion. But that's okay. That's just how the world looks. So I'm going to grab a tiny bit of this ultramarine blue, just like a little bit there. I'm just going to kind of add it in to that line because I want to layer it with the neutral tint because it was more of a dark blue, but I like the bit of purpley gray that comes through with that neutral tint. I'll get a little water, help that spread around. All right, so there's a horizon. So next we have to add in water and sky, and then we do details. Now the water and sky in my reference photo are both basically a really pale blue. I think it would be fun to try using the Prussian blue that I bought, so let's give it a go. Not guaranteeing this is gonna be my favorite piece, but we're just working through it together. It might end up being my favorite. That's often what I say before I make something I really like. So I've got it here on the lid. I've got a wet brush, tiniest little dab. I'm just gonna make a little puddle of it wet over here. A liquid watercolor is gonna be super pigmented at first. You can mix it on paper if that's easier. And because I wanna work with a super pale blue, I'm gonna liquid that out. I'm gonna work on the sky first, just because I want to. And I'm gonna start lower down because the lower part of the sky was those clouds that were a bit more tumultuous looking. They were a little rougher. And I'm basically just doing like a back and forth motion with this paper sideways. And it is bleeding a little bit into the horizon line, but that's totally fine because they're both blues. It's all good. Pick up more color there. And I'm just kind of creating that low-lying cloud bank that we had. All right, so there's our cloud bank. Next, I'm gonna grab my thicker brush, and this is just to save time, honestly. I would probably use my smaller one with no hesitation. Grabbing some more water and mixing it in with my little puddle on the scrap paper, just to get like enough that it shows up. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just wanted like a little hint of blue for the rest of the sky. And I'm not touching directly the that top line of the clouds, but I'm coming pretty close. And if it does touch, that is okay. A little bit more water to thin that out. There we go. Okay, so now we have the sky painted. That's pretty good. I might come back in and touch it up when it's dry, but we'll see. Next, we are doing the ocean. I'm just keeping it this way because it is easier for me to paint vertically rather than horizontally, I find. And we're going to kind of want to do the same thing as on the top here as in the water. We want that super pale wash of blue. So I'm going to get some more pigment in my little workspace here. Add more water. Just keep getting it more watery until I get the dilution I want. Again, this is why I love this watercolor paper from the dollar store. Super convenient to work on. I'm just going to carefully swipe it in between the lines. It all should be pretty dry on the bottom half where I'm painting now because I did give it a little bit of time while I worked on the sky. So it's not bleeding in with the brown necessarily, but it is kind of making things fuzzy, which I like. I think it's nice when the blue and the brown don't get too muddled, but they do get a little fuzzy with each other. And there's a few tiny ones there. You can definitely switch out to the thinner brush if you want at this point, but I got this far, so looking pretty good. All right, so now we have sort of the fundamentals of this painting on the paper, which is pretty cool. I'm going to let it dry a little bit, and then I'm going to come back in and start doing like the darker tones in this sort of separate layer. Probably what I'll do is I will darken up the horizon line a little bit, just crisp it up with a little bit more paint. Then I will go in and do the greens, and then after I do that, I'll see if there's anything I want to adjust in the middle ground. But the mid ground I really don't want to overwork because that scenery with the what are they called, sandbanks and the water in between is like fairly delicate. Like it's kind of like a very fine spidery sort of thing. So if anything, I may add just some more brown on top to add additional, even thinner lines over top of the blue, just to make it a little bit more dimensional. But yeah, I don't want to overwork the mid ground. So I'll let this dry for a couple minutes because this paper dries pretty fast, and then we'll keep going. All right, it has been a while and I'm back. So let's decide what to do next with this little piece. It's super dry. I don't have the reference photo in front of me anymore. I put my phone away because I don't really think it's helpful after a certain point to keep looking at it. Now that I have the basics done, I think I need to stop focusing on the detail and think more about like my creative vision for it. So let's tighten up that horizon line, green, then some brown. I'm going to start with that neutral tone again. Yeah, that looks good. Because that blue I put over top just sort of dried in a bit of a washed out fashion. Cool. Now we have the horizon a little bit more solidified. let's move back to the green. So I'm going to just wet the olive green again. And I will just start adding in some little like leafy shapes with like very light touches. This brush is tapered to the end, so I'm sort of just using the end of it only and just adding in like a leafy. Some of them I'll push harder and get more of a leaf shape. Other ones I'll do just like a little dot. And that I think adds texture and dimension when we're just working with one color. And I do leave little gaps in between. Make some more, add some more water. Make some bigger chunks as we get into like the denser area. And this was the tree, so we're going to just kind of bring it down all the way down to the bottom. I'll stop yapping. You can see what I'm doing. Sometimes working in layers helps, like with this foliage, for example. I just kind of let this side dry, and I'm going back in with the less transparent paint, so just a little bit more pigment on the brush, and it just sort of adds some depth. I do find that I can make my brush strokes a little too repetitive, like here they were getting a little bit monotonous, so try and remember to change up my direction and mix things up a little bit. So now that I have that sort of first layer of green down, or second layer of green rather, I will go back in and do a few like really wispy little marks, like with just the very tip of this brush, like the lightest hand ever. And I think that just adds, like, when we're doing a kind of more abstract landscape like this, I think it adds just a bit of depth and detail that makes it look a little bit more elegant. And I also like to use this ochre. What did I say it's called? Yellow ochre. That's definitely too much water, but I like to use a little bit of that mixed in with the green for dry grasses, because there were some dry grasses in the picture. They're really subtle, like it doesn't stand out like a main focus, but I don't want it to. All right, I'm pretty happy with that as far as the green goes. I may add in a little titch of this neutral tint. Yeah, I think I'll use a little bit of the neutral tint in with the green, just in a couple little spots to, I think it'll sort of harmonize the piece by bringing in that color on the lower half of the painting. I think it'll also help add some depth to the greens. So let's give it a go. Just picking this little corner here where there was a bit of an opening. Just kind of painting in where there was some gaps. I'm also going to pull a little bit of that neutral tint up the tree, because even though the photo just kind of made it look like leafiness, there was actually branches in there. So I'm just going to use that like a wispy little, like see here, like that very thin little line. I'm just going to use some of those like very wispy little lines inside. Again, not that they're necessarily super noticeable, but overall I think it has an effect on the piece. All right, I think that looks cool. I think that's more dimensional for the greens. Now I do want to go back over the brown just a little bit. I think I'm going to go with the lighter. And I'm just doing a little bit more detail. I will add some of those again. Those are like super wispy lines just around the other ones I made, because it fills out the space, and it is more like that in the photograph. Those tiny little sandbars and ripples as the tide goes in and out. All right, I think I'm going to call it there. I'm quite happy with this little piece. Like I said, it's not supposed to be like an accurate depiction. This is more like an impressionism piece. Let's compare the two I did, where it's more about the feeling and the shapes. So for like a distance piece like this one, the shapes are a lot looser, and I kind of painted it more wetly. It's a weird way to put it, to get more of the impression of the cliffs and such. Whereas this one, where it's a bit more close up, I do like doing more detail, and that's sort of represented here as well in this painting. One of the things I like about working on this paper is I like the little gentle bleed that happens, just because of the nature of the fibers, like right along that horizon line where those two met when they were still a little damp. I think it's pretty. It also sort of looks like the way that horizons are a little bit misty, and it sort of blends together. And I like the tones of the sky and the water matching. I like the darker clouds near the horizon. They sort of almost look like more mountains, but I think overall, good job. Happy with it. All right, that's all the painting I'm gonna do tonight. I'm gonna clean this up. I'm just gonna show you some of the frames I got and how I think about framing these kind of things. So one sec. Oh, also I did a bigger scale painting of the similar view. This is like the same, yeah, you can sort of see, sorry. This is like the same area, but this is on a bigger board. And I think I like this better. I think I have refined the style a little bit. This is on a heavier paper, but I still think this is really pretty. And I like some of the way the paint and the water interacted. Yeah, I like the horizon a lot better on this one. And I think I did a more accurate job capturing the nature of the sand. So I'm always getting better. All right, so when I'm giving art as a gift, I do like to offer it framed. And this is because I know the people I give gifts to, typically my family, will never get around to it, even though they are very appreciative of the piece. Additionally, I'm very careful who I give art to because not everybody values or appreciates art as a gift. So I would say if you're thinking about it, it's not for everybody. Not everybody deserves a piece of handmade art. Lots of people do. So we're going to focus on those people. This is a couple of ways that I've framed my work. So hopefully it's not too much glare. This is a little frame from IKEA that I'm very happy with how this looks. And I think this may actually be how I frame these small pieces going forward. This is a little frame. It's almost like a shadow box. You could choose to put it's not glass, it's plastic, but you could put it at the front or the back of this. And I have it at the back just to keep the decal edges kind of flat. And it's just like this size. It has the stand or hooks on it. And the way that I mounted this was very simple. I took out the mat that came with it. I should have it. It came with this mat inside, which is not really well sized for these size pieces. It would kind of cut off two sides. So I took that out and I just took a piece of white paper. It's not actually, it's more like a cream paper. It matched the colors of this piece. And cut it out to size in the back. I used a bit of painter's tape on the back of this painting and attached it on. And what I liked about this is that it lets you see the shadows around the edge a little bit. It is flat, but there's still texture. You can see that it's painted on this like really beautiful handmade paper. I think that's so pretty. At the bottom, I wrote in pencil, I just signed it and wrote the year, but I also would put the name of the piece if it had a name. This one I think was not, this wasn't a reference picture. I think I just made this one up. So this is pretty much how I'm happy to frame my little pieces going forward. And I think I'm going to do some markets in the spring. I'm going to apply to selling these like pre-framed, ready to go, because I think it'd be really pretty. And then I'll write the names of the places on them. So that's one option. Another option is, I just took this off the wall in my house actually. I like framing decal edge paintings in double glass frames. So there's just two sheets of glass holding it together. These are 4 paintings I did when I was in Italy earlier this year. And if I flip it over, here, I did kind of a bad job, but I just used some tape and attached it to the glass that way. You may want to come up with a more elegant solution if you are displaying it in a way that both sides will be visible. But the reason I like doing the floating glass frames in general for these is because obviously it uses your wall color as the background, but I think it just really highlights the ruggedness of the paper, which is a selling point in my point of view. Oh, actually this one's from England, not Italy. Same trip though. I digress. So this frame is actually from the dollar store here in Canada. It's Dollarama is a chain. And I have a new one I just bought of the same one. So it looks like this, and $3.75 Canadian for this frame. And it's just a plastic frame with 2 panes of glass. It's not the most elegant thing in the world, but I do think it has a nice end result and certainly works for me. So for this one, I'm thinking I bought this because I wanted to maybe frame one of these bigger ones. And I think it is nice with all this negative space around it, but even smaller would work just fine. I think this could also work with just 2 of the smaller pieces. With the double glass frames, you do get to play around with composition a little bit. So you could do like, I don't have a 3rd painted, but like you could do 3 if you made them really snug. 2 have lots of breathing room and look nice, or you can do the bigger painting. Or maybe a big and a small, that could even work. So just really cute options. And then today when I was at the store, I probably already put the footage in, but at Homesense, I found this one, which I really liked because it is a wooden frame, which is just a little bit different. So this was on clearance for $10. It was normally $13. It's presented here with a 5x7 picture, which is a little bit bigger than this painting. But I was thinking that this wood distressed frame would look really pretty with the deckled edge on the paper. The thing to look out for these is just how much room you're going to have, because like this paper is quite thick, so it's actually going to push this frame. So it's just held in with these little clips, right? It's going to push this whole thing up a little bit, and we want to make sure these clips can still fit over. So you do have to kind of compress it a little bit. I'm going to have to play around with it and make sure if this thickness, so this paper is a little bit, this is really thick. This is like a 300 GSM basically, and this is 160. It's just paper thickness lingo if you're not familiar. So yeah, just going to play around with it and see what fits when it's all squeezed in together. But I think this is pretty, and like it has the wall hooks already on it. So this is probably a frame that I would gift. Obviously I have to clean it. It's got some fingerprints on it. Versus the Dollarama frames, or I would gift the IKEA frames. Those are my choices for giving these as presents. My dad did tell me he wanted a painting, but I don't remember what it was of. So I'll have to ask him. Maybe I can get that done for Christmas. Anyways, that's my video. I'm gonna end it here because I don't have anything else to show you. And I don't have anywhere to put this yet because I don't have any more of this little frame, which is what I want it to end up in. But that's what the end result is gonna look like right there. And I will write Kingsport by the sea underneath it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little different because I don't normally do painting tutorials per se, but hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought. I appreciate chatting with you guys in the comments. Have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.